Chair Colson, you have a quorum.
Thank you all. First, I want to thank President Bradshaw and Florida Gulf Coast for hosting this meeting and being so gracious to us the last 2 days. We have not met on this beautiful campus since I've joined the board, and I particularly wanted to thank President Bradshaw's staff for taking us on a tour of the campus after the committee meetings yesterday. And President Bradshaw, I wanted to recognize you and give you a minute or so.
Thank you, Chair Colson, and thank you for your kind words. We'd like to begin this very brief part of the agenda because and get through it relatively quickly. I know that time is a premium. I'd like to introduce the chair of our Board of Trustees, Ms. Robbie Repsdorf, for a few comments, and I will follow her thereafter.
Great. Madam Chair?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Governor, Chancellor, and to all of our presidents in the room and to all of our other guests that are here today. And as chair of the Florida Gulf Coast University Board of Trustees, I would like to take this opportunity on everyone's behalf to just say how pleased we are to have you here on our campus today and to host the Board of Governors meeting. We are very appreciative of you allowing us to do that. And as you have seen yesterday and today, you'll be seeing FGCU is a vibrant university, and it consists of more than 13,000 students, probably 14 by the time I'm finished here, but 13,000 students. And when the state of Florida created FGCU, it was to provide access to higher education in Southwest Florida, and it was the only region within the state of Florida that did not have a public university. Well, as a young university and only in its 16th year of serving students, I think you'll see we feel we are truly making a difference for our students as well as our economic and workforce development within Southwest Florida and our great state of Florida. And today we are extremely proud that we have awarded more than 15,000 undergraduate and graduate degrees to our FGCU students. And our annual economic impact has been $345 million and the creation of 3,000 jobs. We are building our inventory of degree programs in ways that are responsive to the workforce of our needs of the region and our state. So as we all work together to fulfill the promise of the educational vision for Southwest Florida, we do take great pride in what you see here at Florida Gulf Coast University, and we do thank all of you Board of Governors for being partners with us and helping us make this happen, because it does truly take the team. So with that, I am now pleased to hand it back over to our President, Wilson Bradshaw, for a few remarks.
Thank you, Chair Repsdorf. And let me once again add my welcome to the governors, my colleague presidents, and everyone who's present today. Welcome to Florida Gulf Coast University. We hope your time on campus has given you an idea of what people are talking about when they say the development of FGCU in such a short number of years is nothing short of phenomenal. Our outstanding faculty and staff, along with our community partners, have worked tirelessly to build a university that provides great opportunity and an enhanced quality of life for students and for our region here in Southwest Florida. Keeping in mind the time and the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words, which I mercifully will spare you of, I'd like to direct your attention to a brief video that was prepared by our staff for you today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
An eagle is not a what, an eagle is a spirit of community involvement, a spirit of academic excellence, a spirit of service.
It seems like every year we're accomplishing more and more amazing things.
But it's not enough to just come into the classroom, get your degree, and just walk out of here.
I think it's about sharing that knowledge with others, and I think the professors and faculty and administration do a good job at trying to instill those values.
I am encouraged to think outside the box. I'm encouraged to develop new programs and new experiences for our students.
We have great buildings, and we have wonderful labs, but it's that faculty member in the classroom creating that spark in students.
There is a faculty that care very deeply and work very hard to make sure that we get that excellence in education, whether it's in the classroom, in the laboratories, or in the environment when they are doing service learning.
Service learning is the opportunity for students to take what they're learning at the university and bring it out into the community.
They want to teach us that that it's not just us out there.
Our institution believes so strongly in getting our students out in the community that they've incorporated it into a requirement here.
Sustainability is very much a part of our DNA, and you can see that in how we build buildings, how we maintain landscaping. Indeed, you can see it in our curriculum.
We have an interdisciplinary philosophy. You have to teach students across disciplines in areas that are common in terms of content.
We work together and we come up with a project or an idea that has everything incorporated.
Can't imagine that another institution could talk about the same things we have, from starting from scratch to being not only in Division I, but being a very successful Division I program in a matter of 10 years.
You look at the soccer teams, both men and women went to the NCAA tournament. Our softball team beat Florida in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Women's basketball program went 29-3, and they went to the NCAA tournament. And our swimming team has been so successful. They put 2 swimmers in the Olympics this year.
Every year it seems like the students get better. Every year it seems like our athletics program gets better.
Knew from day one that FGCU was the right fit for me because I knew there wasn't 50,000 people competing for the same opportunities that I wanted to have for my collegiate career.
After attending FGCU, we all become more environmentally aware of the food chains, the ecosystem, and conservation, and how that plays such an integral role with tourism, the economy, and our local sustainability.
And we are still involved very much at the university level. So anytime we can give back, whether it's hire a student from the university or help with the project at the university, it's always a pleasure for us.
We were the last region to get a regional university, and so we planned right from day one to grow, but that growth has been informed by the needs of Southwest Florida.
I'm from Fort Myers originally. This university gave me the most opportunity to stay here.
There's so many things that I'm proud about Florida Gulf Coast University. Its rapid growth in only 16 years and what we've accomplished, the excellent faculty we've been able to put together and their commitment to excellence in teaching, service, and research, and certainly the students and the impact that we have on their lives. Those are all very special things about Florida Gulf Coast University. Mr. Chair, Governors, thank you for giving us an opportunity to give you all here just a quick look into our house. We're very proud of what we are, what we have built and what we're evolving into, and we look very much forward to continuing our growth and development and providing the high-quality, affordable education that our students expect and deserve. I'd like to acknowledge the leadership of Dr. Rosemary Thomas and folks in University Advancement for putting this together. They've done an excellent job, and a special shout out to Pat Graham, who was just tremendous in helping us not only conceptualize this, but also do the final editing. Mr. Chair, once again, thank you.
Mr. President, thank you. It was a wonderful film, and we look forward to coming back here, I think, in January of 2014. I think it's a learning experience for all of us. Thank you. Yes, sir.
One comment. Mr. President, first of all, Mr. Chairman, whoever came up with the idea of us going around the state and go to the different universities, I think what an outstanding idea. This is the first time I've been here, and the first time got my attention when I saw your master plan. In the business that I am, it really got my attention. You know, you ought to be congratulated. It is just a wonderful, wonderful university we have here. What a jewel. And I think that I think it behooves you to get our legislators and our governor to come over. I think I ask all of our universities. I think that you ought to bring as many as our legislators as you can. Bring the governor to the campus, have him meet your students, your faculty, because they will see any decision that they make, what effect they have in lives of people. Very impressive. Great job.
Thank you so much, and we will certainly follow up on that. Thank you.
I have just a few brief opening remarks. This is the first time we've been together since our June meeting. I'm glad so many of you found the courage to return. But the June meeting was an important meeting for us as a board. I said in January when I took this office that I wanted the board to take its constitutional governance authority to heart, and I believe the June meeting was a good step in that direction. While we may not have agreed on about the amount of tuition increases at the beginning of the meeting, we took the crucial step of having a healthy debate and moving toward consensus. At the end of the meeting, I pointed out that debate is a critical part of the governance process. A thoughtful debate about the appropriate balance of what the state should pay and what families should pay for higher education is a good thing. I know that each member of this board is committed to the students and the system. We continue to have a lot going on between the board meetings. You've heard a lot about the facilities task force, so I won't go into that since we've already talked about it. I did want to update you on the Commission on Florida Higher Education Access and Degree Attainment. The Commission is focused on the targeted issue of statewide need for future baccalaureate degrees. Over the summer, a group of 7 researchers from the SUS, the Florida College System, the private higher ed sectors, the Department of Economic Opportunity, and the Council 100 met weekly to develop the data to assist the Commission with its work. The data has been vetted with senior education and workforce policy staff. The Commission will hold its first full meeting on the afternoon of September 26th at the Council 100 offices in Tampa. At that meeting, the Commission will review the data gathered over the summer and other information to explore whether demographic trends and workforce needs support the board's projected degree production target of awarding 90,000 baccalaureate degrees each year by 2025. You know, last year I think we awarded about 53,000 or 54,000, so that's a significant increase over the next 13 years. The Commission will also be meeting this November and next March to discuss where additional degrees and programs might be needed throughout the state and who should provide these additional higher education offerings. You know, should it be just the university system? Should it be the college system? How much can be done by online learning? How much can be done by improved graduation rates? So all these things will be the focus of the Commission's work. I also wanted to update you on the funds that the legislature appropriated for the Board of Governors to engage a consultant to conduct a study regarding how the state could increase its online higher education opportunities. After a competitive bid process, the Parthenon Group, based in Boston, was awarded the contract. Parthenon is charged with describing the current landscape for online degree programs and courses offered in the state, describing innovative post-secondary online universities in Florida or in other states, assessing Florida's market and the types of programs that could expand or be created to help boost the state's economy, and providing options for expanding the awarding of degrees in Florida, ranging from leveraging the offerings of existing universities to creating a new online university. For each option presented, Parthenon will develop a 10-year business plan that considers factors such as costs, enrollments, degree production, revenue generated, and a timeline for launching each option. Parthenon is currently in the fact-finding phase and has been collecting data and interviewing a wide variety of stakeholders as they develop their report. The report is due November 16th, 2012. Our board will consider the report at its January meeting. Last week, our general counsel advised that she would like for this board to meet in a closed session to discuss some pending litigation. So I'm going to ask Vicki to make a few comments about that request, which we will do at the end of this board meeting.
Thank you, Chair Colson. Pursuant to Section 286.011, subsection 8, an attorney can meet with a public entity outside of the sunshine in a closed session if the litigation is currently pending, which in this case is the Ruiz case, which is currently pending in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida, and if the matters discussed are confined to settlement negotiations or strategy related to litigation expenditures. So I made the request last week that it has been noticed on our website. We were too late to get the notice into the Florida Administrative Weekly, but I think the notice on our website suffices, but I have to make this request on the record as well in order to comply with the statute.
So at the end of this meeting, we'll go into a brief 10-15 minute private session across the hall before we now, the agenda says we come back into full session. Do we have to come back into full session?
Yes, under the law, you do have to come back into full session to adjourn, to announce the conclusion of the session and adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Am I the only one that has to do that?
No, I think the whole board needs to come back in. It'll only take a minute, sir.
Yeah, well, it's like herding cats. It's weird. We'll try. Okay. You all have been provided the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Governors conference call? Come on, guys. Held June 8, 2012. We got a motion. Do we have a second? Any additions or deletions? All in favor say aye. Aye. The minutes from the June 21st meeting. Before we move to the motion for the June 21st meeting minutes, our General Counsel, Vicki Shirley, will read into the record the memorandum of voting conflict filed by Governor Kuntz as required by Section 112.3143.
Thank you, Governor Colson. Yes, Governor Kuntz abstained from voting on the measure before the Board of Governors that entailed the approval of the acquisition of the Tallahassee-Leon County Civic Center by FSU, and pursuant to law, he promptly filed his memorandum of voting conflict with the corporate secretary, and by law, I'm required to read it into the record. The measure before the Board of Governors entailed approval of the acquisition of the Tallahassee-Leon County Civic Center by Florida State University and assumption of the outstanding debt. The only long-term debt on the facility is a bank-qualified note in the approximate amount of $4.1 million held by SunTrust Bank, Florida. As the Chairman, President, and Chief Executive Officer of SunTrust Bank, Florida, I felt it prudent to abstain from the vote on this measure to avoid any appearance of a potential conflict of interest between my responsibilities as a Board of Governors member and my position with SunTrust Bank, Florida.
Thank you. Now may I have a motion to approve the minutes we have from the Board of Governors meeting held on June 21, 2012. We have a motion from Governor Perez. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm on the phone.
Hello, Patricia. Welcome. Now, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Governors conference call held on July 12, 2012? We have a motion second. Any additions,
I'm on the phone also.
Welcome, Governor Stavros. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Chancellor's report. Chancellor Brogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, as I always do, beyond just the thanks of the chair and the board to Florida Gulf Coast University on behalf of staff, I also want to extend my thanks to you, Madam Chair, and your board, Mr. President, and on behalf of our staff members who have worked so closely with your staff members, in some cases for a period of months, in preparation for all the logistical and technical adjustments that have to be made to handle a meeting like this, we say thank you. Your folks have been wonderful to work with, have provided everything necessary to hopefully make sure this was not only a smooth but a comfortable meeting for everyone involved, and we really do say thank you. I don't think most people ever understand how much time and energy logistically goes into putting together a Board of Governors meeting. While moving from university to university is great, and I agree with Governor Husseini, it does provide a significant input of time and challenge to staff to make sure it comes off well, and you haven't let us down. Outstanding job to both of you and your folks.
Mr. Chancellor, thank you so much for those comments, and let me just quickly echo my appreciation to the very hard work of our staff working with your staff to get this done. I am very fortunate to be here at FGCU, where I get the opportunity to work with such high-quality people who are very committed to putting the best face and increasing substance into what we do here at Florida Gulf Coast University. Tremendous staff, superb faculty. I'm very fortunate. Thank you.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, Governor Chopra, I thought I saw a sign yesterday that talked about temporary faculty parking to adjust for this meeting. Let me tell you, having been a president, I know what that means. That's a commitment of mammoth proportion, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much for how you've accommodated us. Quickly, a couple of other items. I know we're going to be taking up a report from Governor Husseini in a few moments regarding the continued advancement of the Florida Polytech and its evolution. But I wanted to say, even before we do that, we had a chance to go to Lakeland to attend and be a part of the first meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Florida Polytech, even though they'd been through some orientation process together, et cetera. This was their first actual called meeting. And I have to tell you, I'll reiterate what I've said before, they are flatly an outstanding group of men and women, led by Chairman Rob Goodell. They are totally committed to this project and are deeply engaged in the effort to see this process evolve along. But I also want to say thank you to our staff members who are largely making up the staff temporarily of the Florida Polytech, because as we know, they currently have no staff, no faculty, no students, and our staff has done yeoman's work in making sure that they've provided that board with what they need to get started. But also to say thank you to the people at the University of South Florida, Madam President, and to you, Mr. President, at the University of Florida. University of Florida was actually written into the law before it was passed as a consultant arm of this endeavor, and both universities have been very generous and very detail-oriented in this process to make sure that it doesn't just get done, but that it gets done right. And we say thank you to you and to your staff members for all the time and energy that's gone into that. And lastly, on that issue, to Governors Husseini, Tripp, and Beard, who continue for this board to be the oversight committee on the Polytech endeavor, and they have given huge amounts of their time and their commitment to this opportunity. And I know Governor Husseini will bring you more up to speed on this a little later in the project. Lastly is an introduction of new staff. We don't have many staff members with the Board of Governors. We saw the budget earlier, and I think that reflects somewhere in the vicinity of about 43 people at the end of the day, everything from those who create correspondence and answer telephones to IT people to policy people. But at the end of the day, it's important when you have a key opening to fill it with key personnel. In this particular case, as you all know, our former communications director, Kelly Lehman, has moved on to the private sector for an opportunity that she couldn't pass up. So we had an opening in the position of director of communications. We were very fortunate to find someone who not only is very bright and very talented, but also is probably not new to most of the people who attend these meetings with frequency, because we stole her from the world of communications that is the newspaper industry. We were very fortunate to find Kim Wilmath, who is or was the higher education reporter for the Tampa Bay Times. Commendation, by the way, to the Times. They are, to my knowledge, Kim can bear me out on this or not, but I think the only major newspaper in the state of Florida that still had a higher education reporter. Papers going through what they've been going through, most have cut back on staff significantly, and in some cases have eliminated a great deal of attention to higher education issues. The Tampa Bay Times has maintained that focus, but we were able to secure her services. She is now our communications director, and Kim, for most it's redundant, but if you'll stand and let us put a face along with this introduction. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you as our Director of Communications for the Board of Governors. Welcome aboard. I'll end there by saying that Kim is now in the business of giving the Heisman to all of the members of the press who want so much information from us, and I find it almost amusing to watch. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the program back over to you. Thank you.
And thank you. And for those members of the media that have been calling me directly, please call Kim. I understand we're lucky enough to have Representative Abishan here. Where's Representative Abishan? Welcome, sir, and thank you for taking the time to come see what we do. It's it's a mystery to some people up in Tallahassee when they get there, and I'm delighted to have you here, and we look forward to working with you and getting to know you better. Thank you. Thank you, sir. At this time, it's my pleasure to ask Chair Solomon Badger to talk to us about the confirmation of your interim president.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is that on?
You're on. You're on.
Chairman Colson, Vice Chairman Hosseini, and members of the Board of Governors. First, I want to thank the members of the Board of Governors for the opportunity to present the interim president of Florida A&M University. After Dr. Ammons resigned his position as president, the board met promptly and appointed Dr. Larry Robinson as its interim president. Although Dr. Robinson has been with the university since 1997, we had several members who were not familiar with him at all. So we permitted a 30-day period of time to allow all of the members to get to know him better. What we learned was that Dr. Larry Robinson, a Memphis native, has a keen intellect and is a noted scholar. He attended Lemoyne College initially before transferring to Memphis State University, where he graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in chemistry. He earned a PhD in nuclear chemistry from Washington University in St. Louis. So we have a nuclear scientist to present to you this afternoon.
He'll get very few questions.
Dr. Robinson began his career as a research scientist and as a group leader at the renowned Oak Ridge National Laboratory. FAMU was fortunate to lure him to Tallahassee in 1997, where he directed FAMU's Environmental Science Institute. Under his direction, he established the BS and the PhD program in 1998 and 1999, respectively. He was tapped for senior administrator in 2003 to serve as FAMU's provost and vice president of academic affairs. From 2003 to 2005, he held that position. His leadership was noted by his peers at the national level, and between 2001 and 2010, he served as director of the NOAA Environmental Cooperative Sciences Center, where he directed and coordinated the efforts of over 25 scientists at 8 universities to conduct research, education, and outreach in coastal and marine ecosystems. FAMU is not the only one that had an interest in Dr. Robinson. His colleagues in Washington, D.C. have called upon him to the nation's capital for a couple of tours of duty. In 2007 to 2009, he served as a senior scientific advisor at the United States Department of Agriculture and Cooperative state research, education, and extension services. He returned to FAMU for a year when the BP spill occurred and Washington came knocking again. This time, he served as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Conservation and Management and Deputy of Commerce for Conservation and Management and Deputy Administrator at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency. He supported NOAA, participating as lead agency addressing this crisis. He served as NOAA's representative to the National Ocean Policy Deputy Committee, the National Science and Technology Council Committee on Science and Technology and Engineering and Math and Education. He served on the Committee on Environmental and Natural Resources, the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force, the General Lakes Restoration Task Force, the Gulf Coast Ecosystems Restoration Task Force, and many other restoration-related task forces. Yet, whenever FAMU has called upon him, he's answered. He served as the Chief Operating Officer during the last presidential transition, and he has served as the Vice President of Research at the university also. Although we permitted 30 days, it took a very short period of time for the Board of Trustees to confirm the appointment of Dr. Larry Robinson at its meeting on August 15, 2012. He's a gifted scholar, researcher, and educator, devoted to excellence. He's worked on several university committees and is known among the students. Despite his great service and commitment to the university, Dr. Robinson has stated, and the board has agreed, that he will not be a candidate for the permanent president. He's agreed to serve until the next president actually begins working. Governor Cohen and members of the Board of Governors, on behalf of the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees, I'm proud to present Dr. Larry Robinson as the interim president of Florida A&M University.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Robinson, I'd like to turn it over to you for a few comments before we take it up as a motion.
Well, thank you, Chairman Coulson, members of the Board of Governors, Chancellor Brogan, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by thanking Chairman Badger and the members of the Board of Trustees for providing me this opportunity to serve the university in a different but, of course, very important role. And I want to emphasize serve. Serving the students, the faculty, staff, alumni, as well as members of our local and broader communities. I welcome this opportunity to serve the university in this new capacity. And very simply put, as I pointed out to you yesterday, one of my major focus during this period of transition will be on student academic progress. We have initiated a fairly aggressive retention progression and graduation plan that we gave a lot of detail about yesterday, and that's going to be my primary focus. But I want to also emphasize that as we enter into the 125th year anniversary of this great institution, my primary goal, whether I'm in this capacity or some other one, is to continue in the great tradition of seeing this university live up to its motto of excellence with caring. And I'm very, very optimistic that the search process that the board has initiated in the last month or so will move very swiftly in identifying a new leader, a world-class leader for the university. And I just want to state here publicly that I will do everything that I can to support that leader as they come on board to take the helm at Florida A&M University. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need a motion to confirm Dr. Robinson as the interim president, and we'll have some discussion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. I would like to have the privilege of making the motion. know Dr. Robinson personally, worked with him tremendously on some programs that we're trying to do now, so he's not just someone just holding a seat, but someone that's moving the university forward. So at this point, I would move the adoption of Dr. Larry Robinson as the interim president of Florida A&M University. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Good.
I just have to comment that as I read your resume, I was astounded. Truly a great life, and we'll probably have to publish a book when you finish it. The thing that I was truly amazed at is how you were able to keep track of everything that you did. That truly amazed me. And so this system is proud to have people like you serving the students of this state.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Okay.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, he has a STEM degree.
Yes. Somebody snuck in here in a humanities magazine. I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just on behalf of all of us, I just also want to extend congratulations to Dr. Robinson and thank Chair Badger and their board for making what I believe to be an outstanding selection for the interim position. And I can tell you already, just in the matter of brief period that he has held that seat, even when we called him I squared because he was rather the interim there for a period of time. He's been a pleasure to work with as his staff, and we look forward to working with him during this critical and transitional period in the future of Florida A&M University. Welcome aboard, Mr. President.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have some challenges, and I look forward to working with you. I've enjoyed the time we've spent together in the last few days, and Chair Badger, I look forward to continuing to work with you. This whole board wants to work with you all to move Florida A&M forward. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is our general counsel has to give public notice of a proposed new regulation.
Thank you, Chair Colson. We are requesting approval to promulgate a new proposed regulation that implements legislation enacted during the last session that amends Section 39.205 in the Child Protection Code, which establishes new penalties for the intentional failure by a university administrator or law enforcement agency to report known or suspected child abuse, abandonment, or neglect to the Department of Children and Family Services. So what you have before you today is a draft regulation that I have worked closely with the universities on. It defines administrator, because that term is not defined in the statute, to mean any of the high-level personnel listed in the regulation who've been assigned the responsibilities of university-wide academic or administrative functions. There was also the need to put into place a framework for an investigatory process, because under the statute, the Board of Governors assumes the role of the fining authority if there is a violation of this statute for the state university system. The statute also applies to the Florida college system, and the State Board of Education is the fining authority, and to private colleges and universities regulated by the Commission for Independent Education. Under the regulation, the investigatory process involves if a credible allegation is presented to the Board of Governors Inspector General, he, working with a qualified external investigative firm, will conduct the investigation to determine if sufficient evidence exists to warrant a finding of a violation and the imposition of a fine. The Inspector General, once the investigation has been concluded, will submit a report to the university, and the university will have 20 working days to submit a response. The Inspector General then, if he deems appropriate, can submit a rebuttal. And then that final investigative report, which will consist of the preliminary findings, the university response, and any rebuttal, will be presented to the Board of Governors Audit and Compliance Committee for review. That committee will be charged with reviewing the report and making a recommendation to the full board as it deems appropriate as to the imposition of a fine. If the board determines that a fine is appropriate under the circumstances and assesses a fine, a university under the statute has the right to appeal that determination. Well, actually, it's really more of a trial type hearing will be held before the Division of Administrative Hearings on whether or not the fine was warranted. Thank you.
Any questions for our General Counsel? Since you're at the microphone, why don't we talk about what you want to talk about in terms of amicus briefs?
Thank you.
Do
Yes.
you need a motion on the proposed regulation?
We do?
We do. We need approval to post it.
Post it.
Oh, can we have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Or post it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Coulson. Back to amicus. On occasion, I receive requests from University Counsel for the board to appear in appellate level litigation as an amicus, which means friend of the court, on issues that have great public importance and criticality to the state university system. However, we do not have a process currently in place for me to obtain the approval necessary to state an official position in a brief before an appellate court on behalf of the Board of Governors. So what I'm asking today is for the board to consider a process, and I think one recommendation is that there is a delegation of authority to the board chair, who then consults with the council upon the issue after I've briefed them fully on the legal issues in the case. And if it is an issue that is of great impact to the state university system, they would have the discretion to make the decision whether or not the board should appear as an amicus.
Let's talk about this second. I'm not a big fan of amicus briefs. I mean, I've been a law clerk to judges, and I don't think judges really care that much about amicus briefs. And they do have the possibility of inserting this board into controversial areas. There are lots of issues that aren't, and fights that are important that aren't our fights. So one general counsel said, well, we could just we could ask the board to delegate this to you as chair to work with the chancellor and I would tell you that if you did that, I would be very reluctant to involve this board into something that I consider controversial without convening the full board together, at least on a telephone call. If it's something pretty routine, I would be okay with it. But it's now, you know, I'm a lawyer, so it's easy for me to do this. You know, you may have a chair one day that's not a lawyer, who may not know what some civil procedure rule is all about or something like that. So it's I don't really feel strongly about this at all. I have no problem with saying we're not going to do any amicus briefs, but I want to bring this up to the full board. Governor Perez?
Sure, I would only have two questions. One is, are the time windows so short that it would require a delegation of authority, or could we convene if you or a subsequent chair felt the need? And number two, give me a sense, perhaps, Vicki, of the cost factor of the preparation of and filing of an amicus in just some general matters.
Zero.
If I'm preparing the brief, it would just be my time.
But
So
often
cost
it's not
is
even
not-
it's not even preparing a brief. It's just it's adding our name as an amicus to a brief prepared by somebody else.
You know, and that's certainly a board decision, but I didn't know if there was an additional external counsel or others who we would bring in.
So what is the question there?
So what happens is somebody decides to file an amicus brief, and they'll come and say, we would like the Board of Governors to do this. Now, the briefing schedule is such that if they did that immediately after they knew that a notice of appeal was filed in a case, we would have time to convene and decide whether we wanted to file an amicus brief. But generally, nobody focuses on this until 30 days before the briefs are due or something like that, and then we get an urgent call, and it could be from a university or it could be from another party that says, the Board of Governors ought to weigh in on this. And there are lots of amicus briefs being filed right now in the Supreme Court of the United States on the Texas admissions policy. I would be hesitant to just add that without a discussion of the full board, because it's a controversial issue, and I don't, it's a, so, I don't feel strongly about this at all. Then there are other things where we have a university that's going to the Supreme Court of Florida who's saying that we need some support on an issue that's a tort case, and so.
May I just weigh in for a moment? I've only been approached on very significant, impactful type of issues. One involved whether or not our direct support organizations have sovereign immunity. And that's the type of position that I, as a lawyer, think it would be appropriate for the Board of Governors to take a position on. And the other issue more recently dealt with a student's educational record and the federal right to privacy of those records. So I've only been asked in my 6 years with the board twice for the Board of Governors to take a position.
Well, what do we do?
Both times we did not. We don't have a process in place for me to take this either to the
Both
chair
times
or
I
the
said,
board.
I don't want to get involved in this without a Board of Governors decision.
And timing was an issue too.
So, it was a timing problem. And
There
so,
were timing
and so, her recommendation is that we delegate it to me and the chancellor in conjunction with her. And all I can say, if you did that, then I wouldn't say yes to many amicus briefs but I'm just one chair. I'm this chair. I'm not going to be here 2 years from now.
This board got sideways with some litigation. Previously, we won't go into it, then we had to meet with the legislature and settle and whatever. If we're going to be involved, I think every board member should know about it. If it's that important, we can always get on the phone. We have a lot of things where we get phone conferences.
I like that.
And I just think that we, as a board, should not delegate to somebody else the decision about whether or not this board in any way is going to be involved in litigation. And, it's very easy to get us all on the phone. I think that's what we do. And it's not that I don't think Dean would make the right decision. That's not the issue. I think if we're going to go into litigation, this board should be in full support of that.
I have no problem with that.
No, it was just to chime in and agree with your position on that, Chairman. I think if it's only happened twice, it seems a little bit like a solution, looking for a problem in a way, and it might be viewed as an invitation for more people to approach the board. Maybe it's a good thing that they know it's a pain in the neck to get approved, and that's why you only gotten 2 requests. But certainly some of these things are political. Some organizations that are involved in this litigation might politically view that the Board of Governors weighing in would be advantageous to their position and just get us in a controversy that we don't need.
I wanted to get on the hill because I think it would be helpful. I mean, I think this discussion is helpful in helping us. Oh, Governor Parker.
We're like on this side of the table too. It's like you seem
Former chairs have a hard time with it.
It's like, Karan feels like, come on. I guess my thoughts are that, do we need a regulation, and can it just be an understood policy that when approached, that it is something that that we have a call about, or just something as I do like the idea of having the full board make a decision. I just question whether or not we need to have a regulation or a policy in place in order to get there.
I think my position has been the full board needs to make this decision. So we'll just continue with that going forward. But, it was thought that we ought to have this discussion. So I'm glad we've had this discussion, and we'll move forward on the agenda. I understand Senator Garrett Richter's here and Representative Matt Caldwell. Where are you all? Thank you. Thank you for coming. We very much appreciate your attending our Board of Governors meeting. It's you all have to deal with us all the time, and we come visit you all the time, and this is what we do. It's very glamorous. On our agenda earlier, we were going to have Dale Brill talk to us about the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Unfortunately, he's dealing with a serious health issue with a member of his family, so he couldn't be here. Our next item on the agenda is a strategic planning. So I'm going to ask Joe Carancho, and also just since Governor Carancho is on the Blue Ribbon Task Force, maybe you can give us 30 seconds on what you all are doing before you go into the Strategic Planning Committee report.
Sure, Chairman, thank you. And add my welcome to Senator Richter and our other elected officials. But yeah, on the Chairman Brill has done really a great job over the last few months in response to the governor's executive order setting up the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Really with an effort to, again, the executive order was to compile and catalog efforts that have already taken place to improve higher ed, whether it's governance or tuition issues, and you know, really any part of higher ed, whether it's by the Board of Governors or other agencies or organizations in the state of Florida, as well as best practices or programs that have worked or not worked in other parts of the country. So the first phase of the task force was to kind of elicit that kind of, whether it was testimony, the chancellor testified in our first meeting, I believe in Tallahassee, and really to collect that kind of data, and it's all on our website, so it's been a very transparent process. We've had several meetings. We had a strategic planning session at Collaborative Labs in Clearwater. That was really very well attended by stakeholders of all, you know, students and university presidents and everyone else, and collected further data. Where we are now is each of the task force members are submitting recommendations based on all that work by, I believe, Monday. And then we have a couple of different calls to edit and compile and kind of streamline those. And eventually, sometime prior to the end of October 30th, I think, when the report is due to the governor, we will vote on the recommendations. We decided among the task force to require unanimous consent to each of the recommendations, and that was just an attempt to make sure that the list was concise and streamlined and you know, less high impact recommendations versus a longer list of every possible recommendation. So that's kind of where we are, Jim.
Great. And strategic planning.
Yeah. Strategic Planning Committee met yesterday to consider really three major areas, all of which stem from the June meeting and the work leading up to the work plans, university work plans for 012, 013. The first major area were system-wide issues that the board asked the staff to focus on and that needed to be implemented and dealt with in order to ensure that we met our strategic planning goals. Those 5 issues that the staff identified were improving retention and graduation rates, increasing STEM degree production, reducing student debt, academic program duplication among the different universities, and issues dealing with the cost of excess hours at the different universities by students. The second issue were institution-specific issues that the staff identified, and that they had worked with the universities and so that the universities could focus on these, and that included issues such as duplication of degree programs among the universities, et cetera. So the third issue is that we heard a presentation by President Robinson and his team from FAMU with their amended work plan. And again, this was in response to the board's request that FAMU come back to the board in the September meeting with an amended work plan, focusing more on again, graduation and retention rates and the student average student debt issue. I'm kind of pleased to report that there was that the amended report was very well received by the committee and the board in general. It really showed in a very short time that the president and his team had really refocused the efforts with some very proactive initiatives based on national best practices and programs that have worked around the country, a number of wraparound services. And at the end of that discussion, the committee unanimously approved a recommendation to this board that the board approve the amended work plan of accept the amended work plan. Thank you.
So I'll
Chancellor.
take that as a motion for this full board to accept the amended work plan.
That's correct,
by
Chair.
you. May I have a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a motion second. Do we need discussion on it? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And that's a report, Chair.
Thank you, Governor Corrincho. Governor Tripp, Academic and Student Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very good meeting yesterday. We heard some information on a consortium of several of the universities regarding student health care, and we had a presentation by the new chair of Student Services, Bailey, who is from the University of West Florida. And then on the formal business, the following regulations were discussed and approved for public noticing during the Academic and Student Affairs Committee and are included on the board agenda for final approval. A, public notice of proposed new regulation 6.013, military veterans and active duty. B, public notice of intent to amend regulation 6.002, admission of undergraduate first time in college, degree seeking freshmen. C, public notice of proposed new regulation 6.008, post-secondary college level preparatory testing, placement, and instruction for state universities. Mr. Chairman, I move approval of these three regulations for public notice.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? So we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Anything further?
Yes. We have a proposal to approve a new education site, the Jewish Museum at Florida International University. Mr. Chairman, the committee reviewed the proposal presented by Florida International University to acquire the Jewish Museum of Florida as a special purpose center. The museum is located in Miami Beach, and its collection of archival materials is expected to enhance the development of existing and new curriculum at the university. The museum is accredited by the American Association of Museums, and that accreditation will be continued. Although no complete degree programs are planned, it is expected that over 300 students will take courses at the Special Purpose Center in year one, and by year 5, approximately 1,000 students will be enrolled in various courses. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the Jewish Museum of Florida as a special purpose center at Florida International University.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything further?
That concludes.
Okay. Thank you, Governor Tripp. Governor Beard, Facilities.
Governor Colson, we had long discussions about several items. We talked about President Bence's task force committee, and we got a report on that. We had the SUS fixed capital outlay legislative budget that we decided to table until the next time, which because we don't have, there's not much to do at this point in time. We don't have all the information. But we have two action items. The first action item is Florida Gulf Coast University's academic building number 5. We need to approve it being named for Charlie Edwards.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
The second action item is Florida Gulf Coast University resolution of the Board of Governors authorizing the issuance of debt to finance the construction of a student residence facilities on the Fort Myers campus.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
That's my report.
Thank you, Governor Beard. Governor Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Budget Committee met this morning. We talked a little bit about some of the metrics that we're trying to put in place to assist in our conversation about differential tuition. In the upcoming years, we'll be meeting with the university presidents and reporting more on that as we approach that conversation next year. There were several action items that need a board approval. First, there's a motion that the board approve public notice of intent to amend regulation 7.003.
So moved. So we have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then we discussed the need to put forth an intent to repeal regulation 7.015 in compliance with some statutes from the state legislature. So we move that the board approve the public notice of intent to repeal regulation 7.015.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
The next regulation goes along with the repeal of 7.015 is that we move that the board approve the public notice of intent to amend regulation 7.008 to conform with the repeal of 7.015.
So moved. Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next, Mr. Chair, we had a presentation with regard to the optional retirement program and changes which may need to occur there. We heard a presentation from CAFA and looked at and adopted their recommendation with regard to the optional retirement program. So at this point, I move that the board approve the CAFA recommendation on the optional retirement program, plan vendor, and direct staff to notify the Department of Management Services of this approval.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
After that, Mr. Chair, we looked at the operating budgets for the SUS and the 2013-2014 LBR. So initially, I need to move that the board approve each university's 2012-2013 operating budget as set forth in our packet and discussed.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I also move the board approve the board's general office budget and authorize Chancellor Brogan to make any changes necessary for the operating purposes as proposed.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Finally, looking at the LBR for 2013-2014, Mr. Chair, we move that the board approve the 2013-2014 State University System legislative budget request.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
And finally, that we move that the board approve the 2013-2014 Board of Governors legislative budget request as well.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I do want to point out that in the LBR budget request, President Manchin mentioned some errors that were made in some of the calculations by the state, and it may require some amendment to that legislative budget request, and we have asked and authorized staff to meet with the university presidents to determine the scope of those issues and authorize the chancellor to make whatever changes necessary to correct errors that might have been made.
I understand.
In the past. So I want to make sure we append that to that motion. Other than that, that concludes our report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Governor Perez.
Very smooth.
I want to compliment this board on how well we're doing.
Got us well trained.
No, I don't have you well trained. I showed that in June. Governor Husseini, you've got trustee nominating, and then also I'd like you to give us a little update on the Polytech.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we don't have any issue to be passed, so it's simple. And we had, let me just talk about the nominating and development. And although we have not had a meeting, but our job just is beginning because we have appointments coming up to every one of the universities as of January 2013. So we have placed the advertising as we required. That will sometimes in October, this advertising will finish. We also notified the presidents and the chairmen of the boards of trustees about the opening that is coming in January. And as soon as we get the applications in, which we think it will be sometimes in October, and I will look at the number of work with the staff and look at the number of applications. Then we'll appoint different committee members to different university to review the applications and start the process. So somewhere between November and January, we will be coming back to the board for approval of the new appointees to different universities. So that's my report on that. On the Polytech Select Committee, the Select Committee met with the new trustees from Florida Polytechnic University on August 1st for an orientation. The Florida Polytechnic Board of Trustees also held its first meeting on August 1st. At that meeting, the Florida Poly elected Rob Goodell as chair and Mark Bostic as vice chair. And the Florida Poly Board has held 2 additional meetings as a full board, a conference call on August 13th, and a meeting in Lakeland on September 5th. On the 5th, the trustee toured the campus site and saw the building under construction. Trustees also agreed to accept assignment of the owner's agent's contract and various leases from the University of South Florida. USF agreed to continue paying for these services until Florida Poly has mechanism in place to assume that responsibility. Chair Goodell has established 4 committees: educational, financial, operations, and transition. The transition committee met by conference call on August 21st and in person in Lakeland on August 24th. The meeting on August 24th included discussions with representatives from University of South Florida to discuss the asset transfers that must occur. That meeting also included discussions with representatives from University of Florida about a potential shared service agreement. You may remember that the legislation provided for UF to serve in an advising or consulting capacity on hiring, accreditation, administration, and other areas. Through the shared services agreement, Florida Poly could begin to hire its own staff. Currently, the university has no staff. Staff from the board office have been assisting the Florida Poly board in its effort. Clearly, the new board at Poly has been working hard, and they are receiving good support from their sister institutions. The Select Committee will continue to monitor the progress towards meeting the criteria set out in a statute, and we will keep the board informed about the progress. The main 2 issues right now is they're working with the University of Florida to come up with an agreement about what type of support that Polytech is requesting, and working that deal out, and also the working with USF about full transfers of all of their assets, the money, and so on and so forth. One thing that I want to bring up to your attention is that I want to be clear here, because I get all this memorandum is something like USF will say, okay, we're going to give you this, you need to sign that we give you everything, and the Polytech University said, well, we're not sure we got everything. And so it just kind of, my recommendation to both sides is sign or not sign, agree or not agree. If at some point in the future that something comes up of that one feels the other one didn't give what it belongs to the other one, is we at the Board of Governors will always step in, no matter what kind of signature is there. And if there's something is owed to Polytech, it will go to Polytech. If it's not supposed to go to Polytech, it would not. So that should not come in a way of progress. We should go forward and go forward. I also, my message to Polytech is about shared services. We like to see Polytech to have the newest way of doing business as the most efficient way of delivery. So with that, we encourage them to work with the University of Florida, as it states in the law, that to get all the help they can and all the help that Florida is willing to give them, and work together, and hopefully we'll be able, I believe it'll be 2014 before we can start our first classes. They think it may be 2013. We'll see. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Governor Tripp, Governor Beard, do you have anything you want to add?
He's doing a great job.
No, and I think we got a great board.
Great. You have an excellent board. Governor Watley.
I just have a quick question, just because I don't like to assume anything. There is not a student trustee working with that board, right?
There's no students.
Well, yeah, I know. So I was wondering, is there any other student representation on there at all, as far as just conversation and idea making, and as the policies are being set and sort of like that? Is there anyone sort of working over there with that trustee board, or I mean, because obviously I'm available, but
Mr. Chair, yeah, I was. I'll be glad to talk with the leadership of the Poly Board and not only bring that up, but see if we can, because we obviously have two very important vacancies on that board right now. Actually, there are more. We still have 3 appointed positions that were intentionally left vacant, 2 by the governor and 1 by this board, to give this group of 8 the chance to gel a little bit to see what special kind of folks we can spot in then in those remaining 3 positions over time to balance the board accordingly. It's a rare opportunity to do that. But second, again, based on title, we're lacking currently a faculty member as well as a student representative. But I think your point is not only good, it is something we have discussed, is in terms of the formulation of the institution, rather than wait to get official appointments, how we might be able to reach out to faculty and students in the continued evolution of this institution. And we'll certainly keep you in the loop in that regard.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You know, maybe, Frank, we could ask faculty members that would agree to go and serve to help the board in that situation. And I don't know whether you'd like to do that or not, but so that they have that until they have their own faculty. And I don't know how you would deal with the student.
And whether they can be real voting members, I suspect they cannot be under the Constitution.
Not necessarily
So,
technical assistance, just support, yeah.
counsel. Okay.
But they could work with them to give them the idea.
Absolutely.
I think Chancellor had a good idea. I think Chancellor will talk to the leadership of and see what they're looking. But we are working with the governor's office for the additional 3 appointments, and we're looking at the board. So it's progressing.
Thank you, Governor Hussaini. Governor, I was coming to Governor Parker for the auditing committee report.
But I wanted to comment before you close that issue out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I was turning your direction.
Finally, it's at the end of the meeting, and finally you I guess one thing I heard in Governor Watley's comment that I'd ask for you to consider as you discuss this with the board, and Norm and Maury and Dick, as our kind of leading group on that, I think that the experience of someone like Governor Watley, if there's a way for him to do something in the interim, even if it isn't voting, it's just a suggestion I would like to make that, and ask that you guys to consider, because having a student who does have the kind of experience that he has may be very beneficial to the board, even if it's just in an advisory capacity. So as you come up with something, that would be my recommendation.
Great.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I will be happy to contribute in any way that I can.
Great. That'd be great. All right.
Just for the record, I wanted to just express that University of South Florida Board of Trustee member Brian Lamb has been working as one of the oversight committees on this, and he has absolutely stressed the transparency and the detailed data collection that we have. We are more than ready to transfer everything. So, with all transparency.
We understand that.
Period.
Let me just respond to that. You're absolutely right. Trustee Lamb, he's gone out of his way to communicate. I'm really impressed with him. He has just gone out of his way to be involved with this. And I think the two sides are working with each other very well so far. And since I haven't heard anything other than just, again, some small issues, I think everything is going forward well. If something comes up, I assure you, you will know.
Because we are ready.
Thank you. Governor, I don't want to get, Governor Parker, audit.
Let me just pull the document up. I'm ready.
You're not ready?
No, I am. I had to pull the document up.
See, this is why he ignores you.
You'll pay for all this. I just want you to know. Mr. Chairman, thank you. There's really more of a technical error or a technical omission that we made during our last meeting that I'd like to have an opportunity to bring to the board's attention. It seems that at the meeting in June, the Audit and Compliance Committee approved the board ratified amendments to the Audit and Compliance Committee Charter and the Office of the Inspector General and Director of Compliance Charter. The amendments delegate authority to the Audit and Compliance Committee Chair to make final determination and accept the Inspector General's report of preliminary inquiry in those instances where the recommendation is that no further board action is warranted. In all other circumstances, the Audit and Compliance Committee would consider the matter at its next meeting. So, basically, if it's minor, you guys left it up to the committee chair. If it's more major, we'll bring it back to the full committee. So upon further review of the record, it's not clear that the board approval included the amendments to the OIGC charter. Hence, I'm asking for an opportunity to make a motion and clear the record up and confirm that the board ratified the amendments to the OIGC charter, which are in all material respects the same as the amendment approved on the June 21, 2012 to the Audit and Compliance Committee charter.
Okay. We have that's a motion, and here's a second. Is there any discussion on this? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. I understand Representative Kathleen Pasadamo is here. Welcome. Thank you for coming. You're on the Higher Education Committee, I understand, and so this is what we do. We look forward to working.
Did you pass those chocolates over to the good representative?
We look forward to working with you this session. And I thought I'd also, Dr. Roy McTarnigan, the first president of Florida Gulf Coast is here, and I just wanted to say, you did a heck of a job. Thank you for coming. Folks, so we're done with our normal agenda. Dr. Chopra?
Mr. Chairman, I did not use the opportunity yesterday to make a very brief remark about my role. It is my honor and privilege to represent the outstanding faculty in the SUS. As we saw in the video earlier, they are the backbone of our system and are reaching new heights in excellence and productivity. And so I'm very happy to represent that group.
Oh, well, we're delighted to have you, and we look forward to working with you. You replaced Dr. Yost, who those are big shoes to fill, but I've already know that you're going to do a wonderful job. So thank you. Governor Parker.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry that we moved so quickly. I did have one other comment I wanted to make. I know it's not on the agenda, but I did want to comment on the fact that you did appoint me, or I do have the opportunity to just view your appointment to serve as a part of the search committee for the University of Florida for the selection of the next president. And I just want to report to the board that we have had 2 meetings and that the search is well underway, and that if there are any comments or suggestions or thoughts that you have that you'd like for me to share, the chairman of the board there is doing a great job. It's put together a great committee, and so I solicit comments from the board to ensure that I'm providing the kind of representation that you guys would like to see on as a part of the process. So.
Great. And Governor Webster, I appointed you to the Florida A&M Search Committee.
Yes, you did, and we had our first kickoff meeting, and the chair did a wonderful job as well. And I have been named the chair for the Compensation Committee for FAMU. And I again want to thank their hospitality for letting me into the Board of Trustees. They've been quite hospitable, and it's been a great honor. to work with the board and the interim president.
Is there any other, I think we're going to go into the executive session, so, and when we come back, I think I'm going to lose some of you all. So is there anything else, is there anything else for the good of the order?
Actually, our court reporter isn't going to be here for another half hour.
Boy, you know, Governor Coons, I did my best.
I have some pictures of my son here.
Well, then why don't we do this? Why don't we go have lunch?
Yeah.
Why don't we go have lunch, and we'll have a half-hour lunch, then we'll come back.
You're watching the Florida Channel, a public service of the Florida Legislature, WFSU TV, and Florida State University.